This one, you can actually go back in on our YouTube channel. We got a couple of alumni and then Air Force's active offensive lineman who was just named All-American second team, Isaac Cochran. We broke down this game ad nauseum, top to bottom, and spent an hour on it. So just go back in on our YouTube channel, check out the Armed Forces Bowl preview, and that'll give you a good idea of where we're at on this game.
That nose guard's playing. Usually nose guards would play, but you haven't heard
Yeah,
anything about
as
him
far
not
as I
playing.
can tell, yeah, I haven't seen anything that would say he is not. Got our next bowl game. We've got the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Split here between Jared and I, and then a pretty close poll for our Instagram fans. So they're leaning Oklahoma State. Jared is as well. So Jared, what do you see out of the Cowboys this year?
I think the Cowboys have stuck to for playing in the Big 12. They do seem to be one of the more physical teams in the Big 12. And I don't know if the audience has picked up on this, but the brand of football I like to see is definitely that big physical type style, and I'd like to see that. I like to see teams fly around on defense, which Wisconsin can do as well. I just don't trust Wisconsin much this year coming out of the Big Ten West. Not winning that division for a Wisconsin team. I can't trust you going forward into a bowl game like this. Obviously, the hype around the program going into next year with the fresh hire, I think will only do good things. I just don't think not a good year for Wisconsin this year. I like Oklahoma State here.
Yeah, interesting enough, you mentioned the new hire at Wisconsin. So Luke Fickell coming over from Cincinnati had a lot of great seasons there. We mentioned him earlier. He has actually opted to coach this game. He will be the head coach on the sideline for Wisconsin.
That's just so
Yeah,
the audience knows, if you don't watch a lot of college football or haven't paid attention, that's a very rare move in a situation like this.
yeah. So he's diving in head first. I think you'll see a lot of guys on that Wisconsin team, especially some of the younger guys, sort of treating this as their chance to make an impression. So
He is
that's one
going to
thing.
hit the portal pretty hard, I think,
Yep.
and look for some guys to come in there.
Definitely, yeah. So I think you'll get the best out of all the young guys. Another thing to keep an eye on for Wisconsin, quarterback Graham Mertz has entered the transfer portal. He's been the starter there for a few years. So as far for the purposes of this game, we don't know where he's going to end up. But his backups, none of them have significant game experience. I do have to caveat that with saying, watching a few Wisconsin games over the year, I think that actually may be a benefit. Um,
He's not
Not
the
to be
safest with the
disrespectful,
ball.
but yeah, so I think that they're going to pound the run game. They're going to work Braylon Allen, who's their 1,000-yard rusher, the way that Wisconsin always does. They tend to turn these guys out like a factory, but Braylon Allen's been a really strong running back. Oklahoma State's got a weak defense this year, especially against the rush. Oklahoma State's quarterback Spencer Sanders, who's missed a couple games through the season to injury, has actually entered the transfer portal as well. Luckily for them, their backup, Garrett Rangel, has started a couple of games while Spencer was injured. So he's got a little bit of experience, but Oklahoma State's going to have to lean on that run game. And Wisconsin's run defense is the strength of that defense. So I just think Wisconsin has too many things working in its favor for Oklahoma State this game, but it definitely could shake up to be a really good matchup. Moving on, Liberty Bowl, sponsored by AutoZone. I love this. It's something familiar to me. I think AutoZone's been sponsoring the Liberty Bowl for 20 years. So
They
good to
lost it
see
there for a
some.
couple years, didn't they?
Oh, okay. Well, I missed that. But good to see some tradition sticking around in the Liberty Bowl. And this is kind of a cool matchup, too. You've got some old Big West teams taking each other on, Kansas and Arkansas. An old rivalry that they haven't gotten a chance to play in a while. But this should be kind of a fun one. You do have the Instagram fans as well as Jared and I are all taking Arkansas, but a really big season for Kansas this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting back to a bowl game for Kansas that's a win. I know 6-6 like isn't the greatest record at all, but at as a Kansas Jayhawks program, getting back to 6-6 is an impressive feat and can't be taken lightly. But I think this Arkansas team should probably be closer to 8-4. and maybe even a 9-win team. I don't know if you had a chance to watch any of their games, but they're a really solid team. I really like KJ's playing, correct?
Yes, yeah, he's going to be. I actually think he's coming back to play next season as well.
Yeah, I really like KJ Jefferson in this offense. He makes some pretty good decisions with the football, throwing it, and they'll use him in the run game some too to complement their running back. And he is a big, physical, strong runner. Obviously not Cam Newton, but does some Cam Newton-like things in the run game and the pass game. I give Arkansas the edge largely because of him on offense.
Yeah, I like Arkansas on this one too, especially that quarterback play of KJ Jefferson, but then his backfield teammate Raheem Sanders, young running back who's also putting up some really big numbers. I will say there's a couple of things that we do have working in Kansas's favor. Arkansas's defensive coordinator, Barry Odom, actually took a head coaching job elsewhere, so he won't be with the team, as well as their leading tacklers. Actually, their top 2 leading tacklers, Drew Sanders, who's declared for the draft, the Alabama transfer, and then linebacker Bumper Pool is out with an injury. So they'll be missing a few guys in the middle of that defense, some of the people that they rely on heavily to make plays on that side of the ball. For Kansas, you may remember about midway through the season, they were actually going mano a mano with TCU on College Game Day to determine who was going to be that front runner in the Big 12. Obviously, it didn't go Kansas's way, and they stumbled a little bit after that injury to Jalen Daniels, their quarterback. But Jalen Daniels is back now. He's got a couple more games back since returning from injury. But Kansas is coming off of 3 pretty big blowout losses to Big 12 opponents. They do have a strong running game and freshman running back Devin Neal. But yeah, again, I think it's a little bit too much for Kansas to overcome what Arkansas is able to do on offense. I don't think they'll be able to catch up.
Yeah, I just re-looking at their Arkansas's schedule right now. The loss to Mizzou, I think they're probably should have won that game. More talented. They ended up losing by 2. They took LSU to the wire. 13-10 was the final score. And then kind of honestly an inexplicable loss there against Liberty. I do think KJ was out for that game, but still bad loss for them. And just that right there makes them a 9-win team. I think those were all winnable games, and I just think they're going to be too much for Kansas here.
On to our next one. This was the only unanimous decision from our Instagram fans, and I actually tend to agree. I think this is a really difficult matchup for Texas Tech. Sort of a weaker defense coming up against one of the strongest running defenses that I've seen in maybe all my time of watching college football. They've got a 3-headed attack of Quinshon Judkins, Zach Evans, the transfer, and then also the quarterback, Jackson Dart, being quite a capable runner himself. To be honest, Texas Tech, they've got a strong edge rusher. Tyree Wilson, I believe, is his name. He's projected a top pick as well, but I would be surprised to see him play in this game. I don't know if he's announced that he won't be, but again, being a potential top 10 pick, I don't see him playing. And other than that, just defensively, I don't think Texas Tech stands a chance.
Yeah, I just don't think they can hold up. This Ole Miss team, Lane Kiffin coach teams in general are a little strangely up and down and just kind of inconsistent, but they're always capable of putting up a lot of points. And when you give them a bad defense, more often than not, Lane Kiffin is going to put up a bunch of points on you, especially with the offensive talent that he does have with Dart and those running backs in the backfield. So I think they're just going to be too much. I think this is just a bad matchup for Texas Tech going into this game.
Yeah, and they're riding a wave of a big win to get into this game. They beat Oklahoma in a close one to close out the season. We'll see if the momentum swings with them as they come into this game. Maybe they can get off to an early start. But yeah, again, I think we're all on the same page that Ole Miss is likely to run away with this one. But still a worthwhile game to watch. Texas Tech will be playing in the state of Texas, so
Lincoln
sort of
also prone to just inexplicable losses. So they could very well lose this game.
True.
But I don't see that as a likely option.
Moving on to the Cheez-It Bowl, which is actually moved locations. I don't know if that was last year or the year prior, but that game is played in Orlando now.
Yeah, it started last year. It moved into a 2 Power 5 team slot from I think it was that in Scottsdale as well. There just wasn't anybody to fill it the year that we played down there. But yeah, in Orlando now, we got two teams that always have high expectations coming into the year, and just didn't quite live up to those expectations this year. Obviously, transition year here for Oklahoma without Lincoln Riley, but it just wasn't the same. Obviously, going 6-6 kind of year for them, and then Florida State. I don't know about you, Tanner, but the program when we were younger was kind of always around and always felt like a really solid program, and they just haven't been that lately. They've been kind of lost looking for something. But 9-3, 13th in the country. I think that might be a little overzealous, but yeah, I didn't really know here. Went with Oklahoma. Um, Probably leaning the other way as we sit here and talk through it again. But
Yeah, I gotta say this is the first one that I've been sort of baffled. I'm surprised that this one didn't end up the way the Ole Miss Texas Tech one did with 100% of the fans going in Florida State. You see 78% there. You mentioned that Florida State, at least recently under Coach Mike Norvell, has been sort of not up to par for what Florida State has been historically. I will say something that he was almost able to reinvent the team through the transfer portal. So both of the two guys we have pictured here, quarterback Jordan Travis, has had a fantastic year. And then on the defensive side of things, Jared Verse is looking at potentially being a first-round pick either this year or next, depending on what decision he makes. And then, super strong offense. They've got playmakers everywhere. They've got an awesome young running back. They've got a really strong receiver. They've got a 6'7" receiver, Johnny Wilson, who goes up and gets pretty much any jump ball. And then they've got, again, I mentioned Jared Verse already, but then Jamie Robinson as well are both really talented players that are draft eligible, and they're going to play in this game. So obviously some culture's been built there that not a lot of teams have. When I look at Oklahoma this year, just being honest, they've coasted off of their brand recognition into this game. You look at a couple teams, and I know the fan bases aren't happy about it, like Baylor, who's playing in the Armed Forces Bowl, feel like they had a better season than Oklahoma out of the Big 12, but because of the name on the chest, they've got elevated a little bit into playing a game that I think is a little bit out of their depth. So that's why
it's about dollar signs.
Yep, you can definitely see that at play throughout college football and in all aspects, and I think this is another example of that here. Next one, you got the Alamo Bowl, and I really like this matchup. You've got Texas taking on Washington State. I actually like Texas, or excuse me, not Washington State, Washington. I actually like Texas in this one. You saw early on in the season Texas at full strength with Quinn Ewers under center. They took Alabama down to the wire. Obviously, Alabama didn't end up being the undisputed number one team that we probably all thought that they would be, but obviously a very strong team nonetheless. And then just down the stretch, Texas, in the face of some adversity, was able to put up some big numbers and take some really tough teams down to the wire, regardless. On the other side, though, you've got Michael Penix Jr., who was arguably a Heisman candidate himself. If he had seen more team success, I think he would have seen more of his names included in those conversations. So a really fun quarterback battle between these two, and I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, interestingly thought that Michael Penix Jr. Move in the transfer portal from Indiana was interesting. I saw it. Maybe this is just me with a little Big Ten bias. I saw it a fairly lateral move, but obviously he's taken advantage, and it's been more than that. And he's been able to elevate, especially the last few games, elevate on a national stage. I waffled back and forth on this one because I do like Texas a lot with Quinn Ewers at quarterback. I think just from the first couple plays we saw him against Alabama, you were able to say, "Oh man, Texas has a guy again." But I went with Washington because I like what Michael Penix brings to the game. He's mobile. He's going to lay out for some yards as we've seen in bowl games in the past. Um, I just think I think I gave them the Washington the edge for that reason. I can't be understated though. Bijan Robinson in the backfield for Texas uh, is probably the consensus number one running back in this year's draft. Um, and I don't know if it's that close with anybody else really. So that'll be tough, but I just leaning with Washington here from the quarterback play perspective.
Yeah, definitely something that Texas is going to have to look to supplement elsewhere as they've lost Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson likely won't be playing in this game, both their top two running backs. So something they'll have to
Oh yeah,
find somewhere else to get that production out of. All right, moving on. I like to stir the pot a little bit. I took Kansas State here in the Sugar Bowl against Alabama. Again, it comes back to that transfer portal. Who's playing? Who's not? Who cares? That's honestly where I'm at with Kansas State is I think this team cares to win a Sugar Bowl, and I think Alabama would rather just pack it up and get ready for next season. Coaching staff, players as well. You've seen it a couple of times, and you never know what you're going to get with Alabama when they don't make the playoff. Is you've seen times where they've lost to a Utah team that had no business playing with them, and then you've seen other times where they've kind of ran away with the game to show everyone that they made a couple mistakes throughout the season, but they're still Alabama. So we'll see who we get. I just think Kansas State's got some guys that are on fire to play in a BCS bowl to prove that Kansas State is a national brand to be respected, whereas Alabama I think is already looking to what's going to happen next year. There's question marks. Who's going to play quarterback? Who's going to play running back? Which receivers are still here? We've got a couple of receivers that caught some big balls this year in the transfer portal. So just so many question marks for Alabama. I couldn't pick them on this one.
Yeah, I think Alabama. I'll get to this game specifically, but I think Alabama over the next few years is going to be interesting with Saban at the helm in this transfer portal NIL timeframe. Because by all accounts, Saban coaches guys really hard, and he brings in a lot of guys that I don't know if they're going to want to handle that, and they have an easier out and options to go places. However, their boosters are going to pay to keep guys coming. They pay a lot of money. I don't know if you saw it the other day. I saw a tweet the other day. Ohio State was in competition with Georgia actually for a recruit, and we're not in the same number of zeros behind money that they were going to be able to give this kid to sign. So these SEC programs, Alabama and Georgia specifically, it's going to be interesting as we move forward here to see how they keep talent. I think they'll sign a lot of guys. We'll be interested to see how they keep it around. But it's Sugar Bowl, damn near going to be a home game for Alabama. There's going to be a lot of Alabama fans there. I'll give them the edge on that. If they show up, they can run away with this game. So I'll give them an edge.
Yeah, definitely the talent gap is significant, but yeah, and they do things a little bit differently down in the South.